And for an in-depth discussion on the president's speech, I'm joined by Dr. Myong-hyun of the Asan Institute for Policy Studies. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me tonight.
So first off, President Moon Jae-in stressed the three core principles for resolving the nuclear issue on the Korean peninsula, which are zero tolerance for war, mutual security guarantees between the two Koreas, and a commitment to shared prosperity. What meaning does this hold, given that Pyongyang-Washington talks are imminent?
Well, this what President Moon has listed up as principles, or three core principles in the UN General Assembly speech, has been basically the principle of the South Korean government's policy towards North Korea ever since the end of the Cold War in the early 90s. I mean, South Korea and North Korea have even reached an agreement to the purpose that they wouldn't really attack each other. They'll try to end the hostilities against each other, and also make sure that there's a peace and stability no matter what. I think the one brand new principle that President Moon has added to this is that he has emphasized the co-prosperity of the two Koreas. This is clearly in reference to the economic assistance and engagement from South Korea to North Korea. And in that sense, I think that's something that North Korea would like to hear. But on the other hand, though, I mean, one big difference between the early 1990s, when the two Koreas have reached an agreement. I think it was called the Basic Agreement or something along the line. Emphasizing these two core principles about security assurances. One thing that has changed since then is that North Korea has achieved a high level of nuclear development and capability, and nuclear capability per se is a form of security guarantee. One could even say it's an absolute form of security guarantee. So in that sense, it's not clear whether North Korea would say, look, we are happy that you are offering us, security guarantees. Maybe we are going to give our nuclear capability. Well, I think that's unlikely. So, I mean, I don't think North Korea will be, all satisfied with the offer that South Korean president has put on the table.
The highlight of President Moon's speech was undoubtedly his new vision of turning the DMZ into a global peace zone. What's your analysis of this proposal?
Well, the fact of the matter is that what we call DMZ, or Demilitarized Zone, is actually an oxymoron in the sense that even the name is a demilitarized zone. It's one of the most heavily militarized areas in the world. So in that sense, I think President Moon is, there's actually a clear consistency in President Moon's policy towards North Korea, that he really wanted to demilitarize the DMZ in order to bring a lasting stability and then lowering of the tension and building the confidence between the two Koreas. So I think it's what he just proposed about internationalizing DMZ it's a logical end to this train of thought that by bringing in the United Nations, you could say that it's one of the most impartial international bodies that exist today to the DMZ that will actually ensure that the DMZ remains demilitarized, which in case of North Korea could be actually in a way could be convenient, because even though North Korea has nuclear capability that South Korea doesn't have, one thing that North Korea actually feels very much at its position of weakness is the fact that South Korea enjoys an absolute supremacy when it comes to conventional weapons. So by establishing a really truly demilitarized and internationalized DMZ, I think North Korea could find that as an actually enticing offer.
Well, President Moon also is known to have stressed the importance of UN presence in the DMZ the day before his speech to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. How realistic is his proposal of creating a UN-backed peace zone in the DMZ?
Well, if the two Koreas can agree on this, and then establishing a UN zone on DMZ, well, that's definitely feasible. I think that from the United Nations point of view, if really this is implemented, which is quite unlikely, I would say, even though if it's implemented, one of the biggest challenges or sticking point would be the cost. If South Korea is willing to bear the cost of relocating the UN offices already based in Korea and around the neighborhood, and also pay for the cost of relocating the dependents and the employees, yeah, sure, why not, right? But then, but the problem is whether North Korea will agree to this is it's a different prospect, I would say.
Well, money is always an issue. President Moon, towards the end of the speech, said he hopes to see the miracle of a sword turning into a plowshare on the Korean Peninsula. What significance does the president's message of peace to the UN hold?
Well, I mean, this is the General Assembly, and then, you know, as a setting, you know, there's obviously, it's a very symbolic place, obviously, and then he can definitely has to, you know, pay homage to the idea of peace and stability. So yeah, sure, like he can say that he would like to see a demilitarized Korea, and then bringing peace and lasting peace to the Korean Peninsula. But then again, these are like a very lofty talk. But then the reality on the ground is that North Korea has been testing, I think to my count, like 11 short-range missiles in the past couple of months. So this is actually the immediate challenge that the South Korean president has to face. And then once we resolve this question, yes, then we can talk about turning, as you said, sword into plowshares.
Shifting focus to U.S. President Trump's speech for a bit, he mentioned North Korea very briefly, saying that North is full of untapped potential, and once again urging the North to denuclearize. How do you see his remarks or lack of remarks?
Well, I mean, I read actually the transcript of President Trump's speech that he gave at the General Assembly. And it was interesting that you know, North Korea was one of the brightest spots when it comes to his mentioning of the foreign policy issues in his speech. So, which is understandable because right now President Trump is in a bind when in the Middle East with the increasing confrontation in Iran, and there are issues with you know, in Russia, and you know, there's ongoing tension with not just with the U.S. traditional enemies, but also with the traditional allies over burden sharing and all that. So by mentioning, I mean, his friendship with the Chairman Kim Jong-un, and as well as North Korea's willingness to denuclearize in exchange for economic development, it's a clear indication that you know, President Trump is regarding North Korea as a potential, you know, positive foreign policy legacy under his presidency. So I think therein lies an incentive for President Trump to be more flexible with North Korea in the upcoming working level talks, and maybe with the upcoming third U.S. DPLK summit. So I think it's very interesting that he mentioned this in his speech.
Now, President Trump recently stated that he's open to exploring new method in talks with North Korea, but nothing on that was mentioned during his speech. And also nothing was mentioned about his new method during the Moon-Trump summit, which took place yesterday. How do you see that?
Well, I think it's because, you know, conceivably it's because it could be controversial to entertain this idea especially in front of the American audience. Perhaps because President Trump finally is entertaining the idea of taking a phased approach towards denuclearization, which many expected would take place in Hanoi back in February. So, I mean, the phased approach has a lot of detractors in the U.S., in the United States, and the reason is because North Korea has broken the agreement several times before. So some people believe the phased approach is a surefire way of allowing North Korea to gain time to perfect its nuclear capability. But on the other hand, if you are committed to solving the nuclear crisis through negotiation without resorting to military option, you know, phased approach is the only reasonable approach that's on the table right now. And I think that's the reason why North Korea received President Trump's remarks in this regard positively after many months. So, yes, I think, I mean, the reason why President Trump is not elaborating on what the new method entails is probably because he's thinking about, or his advisors are thinking about a more flexible approach towards negotiating with North Korea.
You've mentioned that the U.S. may be leaning towards a more flexible method when dealing with North Korea. How do you predict Washington's next North Korea strategy?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, this is not a untrodden path for the United States. They have thought about this. Not just the previous U.S. administrations, but the Trump administration itself was talking about earlier this year of taking a step-by-step approach towards North Korea. Towards actually negotiating with North Korea, and that's what Special Representative Steve Biegun has mentioned earlier this year. So, but for some reason that didn't pan out at Hanoi, and that led to the breakdown of the talks there. So yes, I think I think there will be, clearly the reception will be quite polarizing. I mean, there will be in some quarters, I think there will be a lot of detraction, especially coming from the former National Security Advisor, John Bolton. But then there will be a lot of people in Washington who actually welcome this new approach, because that's the only feasible way of, despite all the downsides, the only feasible way of solving this crisis in a consistent and a safe manner.
North Korea is yet to make any comment regarding Tuesday's Moon-Trump summit or President Moon and Trump's speeches made today. Expected reaction from North Korea?
Well, I don't think, they're really mixed. I think North Korea probably is waiting to see or hear directly from Washington, especially by setting up the upcoming working level talks, where they're going to hear in details what the U.S. expectation is regarding the next round of negotiations with Pyongyang. We have to remember, though, this is a UN General Assembly speech. President Trump has to talk about a lot of different issues, global issues, not just about North Korea. And I think North Koreans understand that they cannot, not everything can be about North Korea all the time. So I don't think North Koreans are going to take this speech where North Korea has just, appear just one sentence as something, also indication that the United States has lost interest in North Korea. But on the other hand, with South Korea's proposal of emphasizing the three core principles and setting up a peace zone in the DMZ, I think, I don't think North Korean reaction will be entirely positive, because North Korea already has nuclear weapons, and I think they're going to use this opportunity to bring that up again, that North Korea is a nuclear state now.
Well, another big headache emerged for Mr. Trump, his impeachment inquiry. So let's see how things unfold from this point. Thank you, Dr. Goh, for your perspectives.
My pleasure.